What's up, droners? Brennan Edwards here, your drone cinematographer, and I am doing this with Dronr Tech, and this is brought to you by Remote Pilot 101. And today we are doing one of our drone interviews, and we are honored to have from Glide Aerials, the man, the legend himself, Jimmy Dempsey. What's up, brother?
What up? How's it going, man?
It's good, man. I appreciate your hello wave. Jimmy, I have had the honor of working with you on multiple occasions and being hired by your company as like a gun for hire, a drone pilot for hire on a couple times. One of the times with the Late Late Show with James Gordon, I worked directly with you on an extremely difficult job with Red Bull. Was that Red Bull TV or just a Red Bull event? I don't remember.
I think it was just a red. It was just a red. It was like a soapbox race or something.
Yeah,
like that.
in LA.
It was like in LA, like at Legion Park or something.
Oh, that was the
nuts.
worst day.
Yeah,
that was the worst day.
That could have been. I mean, yeah, that wasn't fun. I
But
wish there was like. I wish. That, I mean, I think the best part of the day was when we got a picture underneath the arch that said Red Bull.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. That was it. That was the only good part of that day. And even just to take I was going to give you more of an introduction. I'm going to do that a little bit more in a second. But let's just dwell on this day for a second. This is the first day Jimmy and I ever worked together, and we got thrown into the flames and fire. And that's how you stress bond with somebody, because we were there. It was way back in the day. We were working, I believe, with an Inspire 1 back then, right?
Yeah.
So this is years ago. We were working with an Inspire 1, and we get there, and Jimmy, you know, bless his heart, was doing everything he could to be as confident as he could, because he's like, I own this company. This is my drone. I'm bringing you in to do this. Let's do it. And the Red Bull producers were not on our team, like
At all.
At all. There was like, what were the variables we were doing with that day, Jimmy?
I mean, we had a helicopter that was part of the production that no one ever told us about. Out of that helicopter was a parachuter that we were never told about.
Multiple parachuters.
Multiple
Yes.
parachutes. The helicopter just kept doing a spiral up to get up to the desired altitude he needed to get to. So it was just, and then we had
other drones. Remember that?
The other drones, and then from the audience that was there watching, because they all want their own drone shots. So
of course,
next thing you know, it was 4 drones up in the air at once, and none of us had any idea. So there was a lot of times where we just grounded ourselves just because it's just unsafe, and there's nothing you can do about it, and it's just it's a beast.
It was a beast. It was an absolute beast. But yes, that story of stress bonding aside, Glide Aerials is one of the top drone companies in Los Angeles. And honestly, I'd say you could argue in the country or the world, but who am I to be humble for you? You can be humble over there. You can act like I'm on whatever. But Glide Aerials has done a lot of work for many major networks. Like I said, I got brought on recently to do something for the Late Late Show with James Corden. I know they do a lot of docu-series, a lot of TV shows. They've done music videos sporadically. They've done movies before. Glide is not just for drones though. They also do cable cams. They also do gimbal work. Gliding is the glide of the camera, I believe. Is that right?
That is correct.
Ooh, look at me. I done learned something. But yeah, man. So one of the things I love to ask pro drone pilots is how, like, a lot of people like to ask me this, so I like to ask other pilots what their answer is to this question. And I'm sure it's a question you get all the time. The question is, hey Jimmy, I really love the idea of flying a drone, and I want to get into being I want to be like you. I want to be a professional drone pilot. I want to make my living from this. How do I do that? What do you say?
It's a lot. First is I hope you love video games, because they were an essential part of how both me and my business partner both got to do this. And if it wasn't for video games, I mean, for you as well, and
yep.
We got a story about that later, I'm sure.
Oh, yes, we do. But please continue.
Sure. I'll continue. But no, video games are an essential part, just because it's like, it's muscle memory. You're doing everything, everything you're doing as a response of what you want to come from it. And constant video games is creating faster response times, not having to think about the maneuvering that you want to achieve. Yeah. For anyone who never played before, and then now they're trying to fly a drone, they're looking down at the controller like which way to push, when they should be looking at the drone or at their POV camera. But yeah, play a lot of video games. You're stuck inside right now anyhow, so start reading your handbook, start doing all your, start learning your airspaces, how airflow works through your drone.
And you can learn all that. And you can learn all that at remotepilot101.com. That's how you learn how to pass your commercial drone test. That's how I passed it after I failed mine the first time. I don't know if I told you that, Jimmy. I actually failed the test the first time. Took Remote Pilot 101 after that and then passed it. So that's a good way to study for that. But that doesn't teach you anything about how to fly a drone. No, I'm just saying the commercial drone test teaches you literally nothing about how to fly a drone.
It teaches you the weather, and it teaches you about the airspace and everything. Yep. But as soon as it comes to touching that drone, it has nothing to do with it.
Nothing. It teaches you where to fly a drone and what legally you can do.
Understand your surroundings. Yep.
Yeah. And don't display machoism. Don't do that. That was my favorite question on the test. All right, so
that's right.
Yeah, so you said your advice is video games are important.
Play video games. Start reading up on your handbooks. Major biggest thing is going to be understanding your airspaces on a day-to-day basis. And I'm sure we'll talk more about this later. But it's like when we start doing our paperwork and everything, I mean, you really have to know. And I mean, I've already lost his interest just talking about it.
Paperwork. I'm just saying, you just gave me a cold chill down my spine. It's like, paperwork.
It's the worst thing about droning is the paperwork, especially here in Los Angeles. It's very strict and
super strict.
And to a certain extent, it's like, I get it, but it is a pain in the butt. But the one thing is you always need to know your airspaces. You need to know your levels. You need to understand like what are your limitations, and then it's just a ton of practice behind the controller. And if you have a park that you can go to during this time where you're stuck inside, like go to the park for a little bit. It's the best time to go when no one's out there is to learn how to fly a drone. So go for it.
That's the safest time for sure.
The safest time for sure. Keep away from the people.
Definitely.
So.
All right, that's great.
Yeah.
Go on. Yeah, I'll say that's great advice. It's like know the laws, learn to spend time on the sticks, and before any of this, make sure you get some time on the video games because video games for me taught me spatial awareness. They taught you the ability to be able to control something that isn't your body without looking at your body. And I think you made a big point earlier when you're saying like looking down at your controller when you're flying. If you have to look down at your drone controller while you're flying, you're going to be in real trouble. You gotta be able to fly without looking down. And so one of the pieces of advice I love to give is even to start off is get like a micro drone that you can fly indoors, and just practice with whatever it is that you can to get your stick sensitivity up and be able to control a dumb drone before you get to the smart drones, because the smart drones have systems on them that fail all the time. Especially when you're on set in a big pressure moment, then it's just like, and the GPS went out, and for some reason the IMU decided it's not going to work. It doesn't want to warm up correctly, and you're just like, great. So I have to fly this with no sensors in the most difficult shot of my life. Awesome. Good thing I've learned how to fly for years and been practicing all these video games because I'm here for this, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so that raises a different question that I think you would be really uniquely suited to answer. Is you talked briefly about the paperwork, and that for me puts me into the idea of the process of after you say you get a client and like you say you know how to fly and all that. Like one of the biggest things I personally believe about being a drone pilot is your demeanor, as well as your ability to deal with expectations of the client. And so when you're putting things together, like how do you like manage that? Like as you're going through the process with the client, like how do you manage their expectations, like the producers or the directors, when you're with them on set or when you're doing it ahead of time to plan it out? Like how do you approach that process?
I mean, you as the drone pilot have the upper hand. Because usually, not all the time, but majority of the time when productions are thinking about doing a drone sequence, they know that it's going to take some time with the permit process.
Right.
So use this time to get all your information. And like why Brennan hates it so much is it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of time. And it's a lot of very meticulous things you have to go through. But that being said, it's easy for you to check on yourself because you have to do it anyhow. So make this as a check to yourself to prepare for yourself to be ready. So say we are doing a late show and it's like, okay, what do you want to do? Well, we want to fly over this roadway during these times. And then you're like, oh goodness, how are you going to do this? Well, we have to have at least 4 police officers. Okay, what shots are you trying to achieve? Well, we want to have a bird's eye view at one point, and we want to have some push-in shots towards the client. And you're like, okay, cool. How high do you want to be? And once you're asking these questions, you've already set up your guidelines. You're already thinking about where are you going to take off, where are you going to land, what is going to be your safety precautions, all of that sets it up for your success. But if you don't take the time to plan ahead and you're just going to skip through the paperwork and just try to push it, you're ultimately setting yourself up for failure, because you're not going to be anywhere near as ready as the person that's going through all the details like that. So I would say, right?
No, I fully agree with everything you just said. And that actually leads me to another thought. Is like one of the things that a lot of people like, the perspective they have of us as professional drone pilots, is they're like, oh yeah, pro drone pilots, they just show up and have a good time, like they're a party. And yeah, we are awesome and we have a great time, but there's a lot more pressure to it. Like, and one of the things I like to talk to people about is how much pressure you're under as a drone pilot when you're on set, on a movie set and all that. Can you talk to that a little bit and just tell me, like, how do you perceive that and like what does it feel like?
It was like, it's like 9th grade talent show. You wanted to do it, but you didn't want to do it, but you had to do it. You're like, I have to do this. And it's a lot of the same pressure. You not only are surrounded by people you don't know, but the people you do know. And you sometimes you can get into your head a little bit and you're like, am I ready or whatever? But I mean, just practice is everything. Practice creates confidence, and knowing your abilities and knowing your aircraft and knowing all the laws that are set forth in front of you are going to make it to where it's easier on you. I'm not saying it's ever easy when you show up on set, because each time it's a new challenge that you haven't dealt with before and you're just learning. But with more time and more experience, you can start hashing out all the different things that you might come across, whether it's live animals or whether it's fireworks, explosions, or whether it's helicopters, or there are pedestrians in the area. Where are they going to be at? Where are they walking? Or is there moving vehicles or vessels or whatever? So all those little things come into play.
No, that's really important. You have to be aware, because one of the things that a lot of people, again, don't realize is that when you're the drone pilot on set and the drone's in the air, you are in charge of safety of everybody that's within the range of that drone. And a lot of people don't realize that the drone has a lot of range. And so you got to tell people where to be. You got to tell people how to be. You got to tell people to be aware, and you got to make sure you communicate that with them effectively and efficiently. And that can come in the safety meeting that you have to have before you start shooting, and that's a whole different ballgame. But I did want to ask you about another good question I really, really like to ask is, do you have any like formative stories about lessons you learned as a drone pilot? Like, yo, this is a big lesson that I learned. I had to learn on set that I'm happy to express to you now, because now you don't have to learn it.
Man, I mean, these times are always the worst.
I like how you rubbed your face. You're like, ah.
And I shouldn't even be. Goodness. All right. So, we had an experience. I think we were in Colorado, and it was a smaller budget, real quick 1-day job. So, but I mean, even with the flights, the only thing we can do is the night before and leave the morning after. So we brought our Inspire 2, and it's one of the most dependable drones you can have, but with transit, anything can happen. And for this particular job, we didn't have any more Inspire 2s available. We had a few other productions going on at the same time. And with it being a 1-day job, we were like, you know what? It's going to be fine. It's going to be just fine.
Famous last words.
Like this. Famous
last words.
And you know what's funny? Trevor's like, maybe we should buy one. And I was like, no, dude, we just don't even have the money for that, And Trevor's my business partner.
Yeah. And we're going to talk to Trevor one day, too. But please continue.
Yeah. And he's like, and he had all of a sudden came up and he's like, I have a bad feeling. And I was like, nah, dude. Like,
don't say that.
I'm the worst. He said that. And so for me, I was like, no, we'll be fine. Sure enough, that's why he's my business partner. He was right. And it was next thing you know, we could show up the next morning. We go see all of our friends who work in production, and we're like, saying hi. We start setting up our drone. I'm starting to put the props on. Next thing you know, one of the motors won't turn. The motor actually got stuck shut in transit. So luckily we had a Mavic Pro 2 just for a small as a backup of a backup, because we didn't have the so heart drops, everything. Luckily we had a few hours. We were in the middle of nowhere. We ended up finding somebody that was like within like 2 hours, 3 hours of set. So we just basically called him and was like, I'll pay you this much right now if you just get here right now. Just jump in your car with your drone, just get here. And it worked, and then they got there in time. In the meantime, I went out and shot some B-roll with the Mavic Pro 2. And then by the time the drone got there, we were actually ahead of time. So it worked out. But at the same time, for those 3-4 hours that we had was one of the most stressful things, and it's like sometimes you just got to be ready. And those are the kind of instances that I would definitely learn from. And it's like we all have those situations where it's like we don't have the money, we all go through this. It's life, it's production. And there's certain times, but if you have the option of bringing a backup, always have a backup. It's for safety, it's for yourself, it's for your business, it's everything you're doing. So I would say that's the biggest one out of everything.
That is such good advice. And I mean, any aircraft pilot in general will tell you redundancy is key. If you're putting something in the air, like something gonna fail. Like it is, what is it, Murphy's Law, Newton's Law, all of their laws. Is that if there's a possibility of something going wrong, and now you have a drone that has, I don't even know if I could name how many systems a drone has on it. Like you got the GPS system, the IMU system, the sonar system, you have the visual obstacle avoidance system that can be turned on and off. You have, what I'm saying? Like you have each one of the different motors. Any one of them goes down, you got a problem. You have the light bridge technology that's controlling the drone. You have the HD transmission. Like there's so many systems on a drone that can go wrong. And believe it, that yes, some jobs are going to be great, but there will be jobs if you take this on that things are going to go wrong. And having that experience, like you were saying, of like knowing what to do and how to troubleshoot is probably one of the most valuable things you could have. And even more than that, beyond the troubleshooting, redundancy. This ain't working. Yeah. That's cool because we have this. I can't tell you how many times I'd say if I did 100 drone jobs, right? I'd say maybe 10 or 15 of them I've had to use my backup. And that is, I think, a very high percentage for anything you do in life to have your backup. But that's drones, especially when you're just like, that's just what happens. Like, there's too many systems. I mean, do you think that percentage is high, like in the sense of like,
no,
that's
because
unreasonable?
It's like, not even necessarily the aircraft. And I know what you're saying, but it's like it's the controller, it's the antennas that could have broke like all of a sudden.
So many things.
It's like someone left a soda on set that shouldn't have, and it spilled on your Crystal Sky, or it's, on your iPad. Your iPad died in the middle of it because the heat. There's like so many little factors that are gonna come up. The HDMI output's not working for your director
for no reason.
You've never even used it before. Exactly. You've always done SDI out. So it's like, it's just little things. Also, another thing I just thought about too, that was it's always a scary thing, and if you are going to be going into a location where it's different airspace, Class G airspace is your normal airspace that you can fly freely up to 400 feet. Anything beyond that, whether it's Class B, C.
Yep. No, I said everybody loves Class G. It's the best one.
Loves it. Yeah. Best one. See that? And you're just like, less paperwork. Perfect.
Exactly. Everything wins.
But when you do have those other airspaces, especially if it's closer to the actual airport or military airbase or port, whatever the case is, to check the DJI. Like if you're using Inspire 2, Mavic Pro 2 or whatever, make sure you're cleared with DJI as well on there. Because if you're not unlocked, then you'll show up on set, you have all the paperwork, you have the permit, you've done everything in your power, but then all of a sudden you turn on drone and you get that top red bar on your screen and it says, cannot fly. Yep. And you're just like, now you have to get permission from DJI, which has gotten really fast.
Yeah.
It's gotten really fast. But imagine if there was, during a time when no one's responding or something happened, systems are down, you're screwed. You can't take off.
Yep.
So I would say that's another big one because we've been in that issue before, and yeah.
Oh yeah. No, and that's all excellent advice. Like thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you, and I can't just let you go without revisiting the story that we started with. We always, this full circle, man. So we're gonna bring it back, and the story that we did with the Red Bull, the first job. We rode there together, riding back to his house. Jimmy says he has a tradition of bringing all the new pilots and people he worked with to his house to play video games because most drone people are video games, like he mentioned before. And so he said, Brent, I'd like to do that with you. Little did he know how competitive I was. I was like, yes, let's go. I'm in. What would you like to play? And he was like, Super Smash Brothers. And I was just like, perfect. And I got really excited. And Jimmy, like I said, all you said is that you've never lost in your house. I believe that's what you said, right?
Yep. Yeah. I wasn't cocky about it. But I was stating a fact.
It's just stating a fact. Right.
Just stating a fact.
And so we got to go to his house and play. And I can't remember exactly how did that go, Jimmy?
Oh, I think he remembers exactly how it went. I think he's already written a book about. It's just called Smash. That's what this book is called. And so no, we go up. I have a big projector, and we have all of our Nintendo systems hooked up to a Super Nintendo, N64. I mean, who can go wrong with that? So we go play Super Smash Brothers, and I've always been a Kirby fan. Little did I know, him growing up, him and his twin brother, which you can't really get more competitive than a twin brother.
You cannot.
No, and he had to play Kirby every day as Star Fox.
Yes, I did.
And that's what he did on this one. And so I left that day. I moved out. I did.
Yo, the look of dejection on your face afterwards. Like, Jimmy was so warm and welcoming before that, and then after we played, it was just like, yeah, man, it was really nice to meet you. The door's right over there. You have a good day. I was like, oh, man, what, you don't want to play again? You're like, nah, man, like, I really appreciate you. And I just imagine, like, afterwards you went into the bathroom and just, like, stared at yourself in the mirror and had to think about some things.
Do I still want to pursue this path?
Right. Am I really a drone pilot? Like, I don't even know. It was a rough drone day.
For the record, I did not tell him to get out after that, but we probably did not. I don't even think we played it. Did we play? I think we did. We probably did
like
play
2.
another game.
I think we played 2.
I lost. I lost again too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all good, man. There's new games out, new Super Smash Brothers games. I believe in you. Like, there's always hope. Just like I know you told me earlier before that you're starting to learn FPV flying. So right along with it, learn something new, spend some time with it. We got time as we're quarantined to do it, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But Jimmy, I want to thank you, bro. I really think you are the best. I really appreciate all the work that I've been able to do with you. I look forward to doing it in the future. Thank you guys, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Dronr Tech that has been brought to you by RemotePilot101.com. They are awesome. Check them out if you want to get your commercial pilot's license. That is the best way to study for the test. I failed my first test. Took their course for the second time I went there, and I almost got a perfect score. So highly recommend that. Make sure you guys subscribe and turn on notifications so you guys can make sure you are getting this content every time we put it out, because there will be more drone interviews. Jimmy, thank you again, and everybody, stay fly.